Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we are going to demystify a tool that sits at the absolute heart of professional photography, lighting modifiers. Specifically, we're talking all about softbox shapes for better portraits, and how choosing the exact right one can completely elevate your shots from feeling kinda amateur to totally magazine cover ready. Honestly, if you've ever felt overwhelmed staring at a massive wall of umbrellas, octaboxes, and lanterns, you are in the exact right place.
So, let's just get right to the core of it. Why do some portraits look incredibly flat, while others just absolutely pop with life and dimension? Well, we know light is everything, but bare light, like a raw flash or an exposed bulb, is inherently harsh. It creates these super severe shadows and blown-out highlights that give your subject that classic deer in the headlights DMV driver's license look. To get those beautiful, flattering portraits, we've got to tame that light. We need softboxes. But here's the catch. Not all softboxes are created equal, and the physical shape you choose dictates exactly how that light is going to behave.
If you really want to understand a photographer's lighting setup, just look closely at the subject's eyes. Notice how the reflection in the eyes changes entirely based on what light is being used. In some, you're going to see a distinct square. In others, a perfect circle. The secret to professional portraiture is literally hiding right there in plain sight. We actually have a name for that reflection. It's called a catchlight. A catchlight is simply the reflection of your light source in the eye, and it takes on the exact physical shape of your softbox. It helps to think of different softbox shapes like the specific brushes a painter uses. Just like a wide brush creates a completely different stroke than a fine detail brush, a rectangular softbox paints light onto your human canvas entirely differently than a round one.
All right, Section 1, Rectangles and Strips, the classic window. Rectangular softboxes are incredibly popular, and for good reason. They perfectly mimic natural window light. Think about it. Almost all the windows in our homes and studios are rectangular. So when our brains see a rectangular catchlight in a portrait, we just naturally accept it as familiar, soft window light. Plus, because they can be quite tall, they are absolutely ideal for lighting a subject from head to toe, which makes them a massive go-to for fashion and e-commerce. Oh, and here's a crucial pro tip. They are for sure the absolute best choice if your subject is wearing glasses. It is so much easier to position a straight-edge rectangle to avoid harsh glare on lenses than it is with a curved modifier.
Now within that rectangular family, we have strip softboxes. These are basically highly extended, super narrow versions of the rectangle. You usually wouldn't use these as your main light. Instead, they are your rim light specialists. You'd place these behind or slightly to the side of your subject to paint this precise, beautiful line of light right down the edge of their silhouette. It brilliantly separates the subject from the background and creates this massive sense of 3D depth.
Moving on to Section 2, Octagons and Parabolics, the natural sun.
So the big takeaway here is that octagons, or octaboxes, produce a round, incredibly natural-looking catchlight, while our rectangles mimic a window, an octabox mimics the sun itself. That eight-sided shape creates a beautifully rounded light spread that wraps around a person's face flawlessly. Because you don't have those hard rectangular corners, the transition from light to shadow across the cheeks and jawline is incredibly smooth. It's arguably the most flattering modifier you can use for a headshot.
Just look at how placing two octaboxes in front of a standing subject wraps them in this incredibly soft, even illumination. It's a classic, totally foolproof setup that minimizes those harsh shadows and guarantees you get that gorgeous sunlight catchlight we were just talking about.
Building right off the octagon, we have the parabolic softbox. Now, a parabolic shares that exact same round, sun-like catchlight, but it uses a much deeper, almost bell-like shape. So instead of just pushing the light outward, that deep geometry actually funnels and focuses the light much more efficiently. It's kind of like a hybrid between your traditional umbrella and an octabox.
And that brings us to the parabolic advantage, which is all about giving you an immense amount of control. Out of the box, it gives you beautiful, soft light. But if you rip off that front white diffusion layer, you expose this highly reflective silver interior. That instantly turns the modifier into a giant, punchy reflector that creates super high contrast, dramatic fashion lighting. On top of that, you can slap a fabric grid onto the front to narrow the beam down even further, ensuring the light only hits your subject and doesn't spill all over your background.
Next up, Section 3, Lantern Softboxes, the room fill.
Unlike rectangles or octaboxes that push light in one forward direction, lanterns are completely spherical. They spread soft light in literally every single direction, a full 360 degrees. This creates a very natural, glowing vibe that just doesn't feel overly lit or directional at all.
When you find yourself in a situation where you need to evenly illuminate both your subject and the entire surrounding room, the lantern is your absolute go-to modifier. It's literally the ultimate tool for environmental portraits, real estate photography, or even interior video shoots where you just want the space to feel naturally bright and inviting without any heavy, obvious shadows.
But what if you want that beautiful, soft lantern light, but you really don't want it bouncing off a specific wall? Well, here's an awesome pro tip. Many modern lanterns actually feature Velcro around the rim, which lets you attach a skirt. You just roll the skirt down to block the light from spilling in certain directions. It basically lets you take this massive glowing orb and direct it. You get all the incredible softness of a lantern, but with the targeted control of a traditional softbox.
Let's dive into Section 4, Distance and Direction, the secret variables.
Okay, this right here is a massive aha moment for so many photographers. The golden rule of distance tells us that regardless of the shape you choose, moving the modifier physically closer to your subject actually creates softer light with much smoother shadow transitions. Why does that happen? Because relative to the subject, the light source actually becomes larger, allowing it to wrap around them. On the flip side, pulling the light further away makes it a smaller point source, giving you much harsher shadows and a lot more contrast.
Let's look at how this applies to advanced setups by quickly comparing a standard softbox to a scrim. A softbox is a fixed unit, right? The bare flash inside is always sitting at a set distance from the front diffusion fabric. But with a scrim, which is basically just a large independent sheet of diffusion, you can actually slide your bare flash back and forth behind it. This lets you completely change the density of the shadows and the contrast of the highlights on the fly, giving you way more creative control over the final aesthetic than a standard off-the-peg softbox allows.
And finally, Section 5, your perfect match. Time to choose the right tool.
Think of this as your ultimate cheat sheet. If you are shooting full-body fashion or subjects wearing glasses, you're going to want to grab a rectangle or a strip box for those classic window-like catchlights. If you're doing tight headshots or beauty portraits, the Octagon is absolutely your best friend for natural sun-like eyes. Need highly focused, punchy contrast for a high-end fashion shoot? Reach right for that parabolic. And of course, if you need to light up a whole room for an environmental portrait, the lantern is going to give you that gorgeous omnidirectional fill.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I have a fun challenge for you. The next time you're flipping through your favorite magazine or watching a beautifully shot interview, look closely right into the subject's eyes. What shapes are hiding in their catchlights? Once you start reverse engineering professional lighting out in the real world, you are going to be so eager to grab your camera, set up your own softboxes, and start painting with light yourself. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep experimenting out there.